This week on the Desert Tiger Podcast, it's the reigning, the defending Western Canadian Music Award Instrumental Artist of the Year. Please join me in welcoming to the show, it's the Apollo Sons. And with that, welcome to this episode of the Desert Tiger Podcast, because I am your host here on the show, Colton G. And on this week of the DTP, as you may have just heard, I'm going to be joined by a few of the members of the Apollo Sons. But before we go ahead and jump into the Sons and everything that they are about, I want to take a few moments here. First off, I want to thank those of you who checked out last week's episode, which featured Sanjay Saran of Delhi to Dublin, as we spoke about the group's latest album, We Got This, and all the positive messages that Delhi to Dublin crammed into that album, and it is a beautiful album. If you haven't checked out that episode yet, what are you waiting for? It is in the backlog, as well as 67 other amazing episodes with very talented, driven individuals. So go ahead, hit subscribe, check it out for yourself if you haven't done that yet. And of course, I want to take a quick moment to shout out ilovedtp.com, because that is where you, that's right, you, find yourself the sickest Desert Tiger merch so that you can rep the show everywhere that you go. And of course, you know that I'm going to be so thankful for you for going and checking that out. Alright, like I said at the top of the show, my guest today is going to be the Apollo Sons. Ed, Glenn, and Anatol took some time last week during the Apollo Sons Western Canadian run to sit down and talk some shop, discuss all things about the band, including the group's latest EP, their 2019 release, Dawn Offerings. We're going to get into a bunch of details about that EP, as well as the first EP that the group released back in 2017, entitled Each Day a Different Sun. From there, we're going to talk to the group about their Western Canadian Music Award win last year, and what does it feel like to be nominated in the same category again. Of course, this year they're going up against past podcast guest and good friends of theirs in 5 Alarm Funk. So there's a lot of talent in the Instrumental Artist of the Year category for the WCMAs. We have a lot to discuss about with the Sons. We also have some future plans to discuss with the band. Of course, like I said, we hit this interview while they were on a tour. Do they have any more tours planned for the rest of this year? What does 2020 hold for the Apollo Sons after the Breakout West Western Canadian Music Awards ceremony? And just what has the book smart members of the band like Glenn and Anatol learned from band leader and street smart musician Ed DeRoche? All of this plus more in today's episode featuring the Apollo Sons. And you guys know that this wouldn't be an episode of the Desert Tiger Podcast without spinning you one of the tracks off of their latest EP, Dawn Offerings. And of course, what comes before the dawn? What must happen before the light can begin to break through, before we can begin to make those offerings? This, my friends, is Dark Night.
Desert Tiger Podcast.
We are here with a few members of the Apollo Sons. How's it going today, boys? Please introduce yourselves and what you do in the group.
I am Ed DeRoche. I play guitar and what some would consider the band leader.
I would consider that.
Yeah.
As Glenn Radley, I consider you band leader.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
What do you do, Glenn?
I play drums when I'm not considering Ed as my band leader. Yeah.
And I'm Anatol, and I play keyboards at all times, regardless of...
That's a much better
Thank you.
attitude. Way
Thank
better attitude.
All right, so how did the group end up getting formed? How did it come together? I guess I should ask that of the leader himself.
Well, the group kind of started out of the destruction, I should say, of my last band, Electric Soul, where Dave Gannett, who is bass player in Apollo, and myself had a band, and we didn't have a band, but we had shows, so we would invite friends to come up and freeform jam with us for an entire set and make things up as we went. And we saw that the response was way more enthusiastic for that than what we had been doing with Electric Soul, and actually like trying and, kind of forcing things that you know when you're not being honest with yourself about your strengths and weaknesses, and you just kind of want to be something that you're not. That's kind of what that band was.
You're trying to put a square peg into a round hole.
Exactly.
Yeah. Or a hexagonal one.
Oh,
Yeah.
I guess so. Hey, yeah.
So we had this, we just had gigs and it was going really well, and we were like, well, I guess we should be an instrumental band now. We started as a 4-piece, and then we quickly added trumpet, percussion, and then all the other horns came in. And now a lot of the original members, like Ethan, whose house we're in actually right now, left the band, and then we brought in Glenn and Anatol, and then now we have like a really solid core, and now we're a 10-piece with like five horns. So
Locally.
locally we're a 10-piece.
Okay,
and,
so how many pieces tour then?
6 to 8.
Yeah, this tour it's 6, but we've had as many as 8, and then the next 2 tours this summer will be 7.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, are you guys planning on taking 7 with you up to Whitehorse for Breakout West?
Yeah, probably 7 or 8. We're still figuring out all the logistics of Whitehorse and whether or not it makes sense for us to go up there. With the travel costs and with winning the Western Canadian Music Award last year in Kelowna, it opened up a lot of doors for us that have allowed us to make the connections that we were going up to Whitehorse to make. So it's kind of like, does it make sense to bring a 10-piece all the way to Whitehorse? Although I would really love to go for the travel and, beautiful nature aspect of that. But
I might go.
Glenn might go with this
songwriter named Ava Wild from Saskatchewan.
Okay.
Very good songwriter. The door's open.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Low wind.
Yeah, that's still a maybe thing, but I hope it happens. That would be sick.
Yeah, I kind of want to go up too. I was actually in Kelowna, but I ended up missing you guys, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
I already committed myself to too many showcases.
Oh, that's all good. Well, fun fact, we didn't actually showcase in Kelowna.
Really?
We just won the award, and I was actually on a panel about touring in Western Canada. So I did everything else to do with that conference minus the
Playing
showcasing
others.
part. So
I guess I can say that's why I missed you guys.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, but yeah, if you have a chance, like I would recommend anyone going to Breakout West. I've been to a couple other big conferences, and Breakout West was definitely like really great for us. Like we made a lot of connections that we're now working with, and building the next steps, I guess, to a more international market.
Okay.
Yeah. Ed has really done a great job in pushing the band. Can I just acknowledge your good work?
By all means, please do.
He's done a very good job of helping us build into the next level, and I think we could both.
Yeah, absolutely, and
say
it's
that we're grateful for that.
absolutely, and it's really exciting to see where the band is going and the direction that we
Yeah.
seem to be taking, and it's
Yeah.
really all looking.
Yeah, we
looking
spent the
sunny
last
from here.
2 days making demos in this house. There's a home studio upstairs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And make
I've
demos.
never been a part of a band that like had like an actual potential shot.
Yeah.
You know, like I've always wanted to be a professional musician and all that stuff, but like over the last 4 or 5 years, it's like really understanding what that means, because when you're young, I think you have a different idea of like the work that needs to go in, and then when you really start getting down to like the bottom line, it's like, oh, there's way more work than I ever expected or thought. But it's really great to see it actually going somewhere, and like believing so strongly in it. It like it's great. It's surreal at times.
Oh, definitely. And it's always is that kind of getting brought down to earth moment where you'll be that local band and you're just playing shows and it's like, yeah, this is fun. And it's like, all right, now let's try and book a tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, how many aspects actually go into this? Oh my goodness.
And then not just booking a tour, making it a successful tour.
Oh, that's the hard part.
Like anyone, like I have newer bands approach me and be like, I want to book a tour, and I'm like, why? Like, why do you want to go out there? And it's like, oh, we just want to go and play. It's like, well, that's stupid. You can play at home and lose a bunch of money there, but I'm more like, well, let's go out for a purpose and a point. Like, it's great to go out and play and try to build a fan base, but it's like, let's do it smart and right, and like, with like a strategy involved, which is a whole other thing than just booking a tour.
Yeah.
Oh, trying to plan 6 to 18 months in advance.
Oh, yeah.
Like when it comes to albums. And...
Yeah, I've usually got like 10 timelines. I've got like a month, 3 months, 6 months, a year, 2 years, and then I've got like 5-year plans and like all these goals that, your 5-year plan just informs how you're going to work backwards. You're kind of reverse engineering. But then little things come up, there's always little opportunities that and little landmines that come into your plan, and you're like constantly navigating this shit show.
Whoa.
Well, and you like half the time you don't even know or what to expect.
Oh yeah,
when it's coming, because it could be good, it could be bad, but no matter what, like like how that affects your 5-year plan, you never know.
Well, someone could see you, like someone could see you that you don't know is there.
There's a chaos element of random chance probability that comes into play on the road, because you just don't know who you're going to meet or who you're going to be on the same bill as. We made really good friends with a band called Blonde Diamond by playing with them at Bose, and like that was
and Golden Sound.
Yeah, Golden Sound.
And a bunch of stuff has come out of that, or like you never know who's going to see you. Even yesterday we were in Enderby at Lorenzo's Cafe, which was great, but there was only like 20 people there, but 5 of those people book concerts and performance series all over the Okanagan, and it's like, well, we just made on a random Tuesday night gig, we just made a ton of contacts, and so you never know who's going to see you at what time. That's going to be like, oh, hey, come do this, and you're like, well, this wasn't part of my plan. I remember Bucky from Royal Canoe, when I was talking to him about this, he was like, you got to have your plan, but you got to be loose enough to pivot when a good opportunity comes up. Like, you can't lock in everything. Like you're planning, but you're keeping it loose at the same time.
we have to be kind of like water, right? Where you have your goal, but if somebody goes and diverts you, well, I mean, like, we'll just float there, and we'll still try and end up where we're going, right?
Yeah. You're generally going to make it to the ocean, as long as you're not an idiot. But
gravity and climatology help as well.
Yes.
No, exactly. Always random factors and things that you don't control yourself personally. And that's just it. Is like on paper to say like, oh, we only had 20 people there. Like that may not look successful on paper, but those 5 contacts have more value than maybe 10 more people in that venue maybe would have had.
Yeah. And I mean, like, it's like some gigs are like building gigs. Like, we go certain performances, like, we're playing to get this one person in the audience who's going to, like, book us for this festival or something. And obviously, there are tons of factors to every show. Like, we want to sell out every room and sell tons of merch. But there are some stops where it's like, we are going specifically to play to this person. And, of course, promoting the show and doing all that thing. But it's like one of the goals. So
those gigs are almost more high pressure than the big venues. Like the big venues, like really well attended stuff. It's just fun to. Forget everything.
I mean, Ness Creek.
Perfect.
Yeah, Ness Creek was this festival we did last year on our Western tour.
Yeah,
and it was amazing.
In the wilderness of northern Saskatchewan, there's
beautiful
a creek.
Beautiful place.
And the festival is in this forested area that is kind of. On either side of a really beautiful, pristine, clear creek that's very similar to the water quality we have here in Lake Country, I would say.
Yeah, and it was great. Like, we went on at like 1 a.m. at the after hours tent to
after the Dead South.
1,200 people or something.
Yeah, it was like 12 to 1,500 people, and it's like classic festival scene where there's like people holding up flags and like glow stick poles and beach balls, and like the band walks out, and I just wave, and there's like that huge roar, and you're like, whoa, this is cool.
So you guys caught the crowd right after like one of the headliners when they're still at the top of their height. Wow, that's nice.
Yeah, they like pretty much just rushed over, and it was
it's like a 3,000 person festival as well.
Yeah, so. It was nice. It was one of the bigger audiences up until then that we've played for.
We have a pretty exciting one when we go home.
Yeah, we're main staging the Winnipeg Pride Festival.
Oh,
so it's nice. It's like in the Forks, which is like a historic kind of touristy, but they've like put a lot of work into it. It's like right where the two rivers meet in Winnipeg. It's a beautiful spot, and
also the site of the Canadian Museum for Human Rights.
Yeah, and just a very cultural, significant spot. But like the fort was there.
Upper Fort Garry.
Like a lot of historic. Like
super touristy now, though.
Yes, very.
But anyway, we're playing Pride like right when the parade gets to the Forks, which is the stopping point. So
it's like 40,000 people projected. It's like, oh my god, I think I'm probably gonna pull an 8 Mile and just vomit in the I'm gonna need like 3 buckets.
You would mom spaghetti meme this podcast.
Why did I eat spaghetti?
This is a nightmare. I'm so excited.
I knew this was going to happen. We got a pop in the background. I love it. So you decided that we were going to focus on instrumental. Was there a serious focus onto the horn aspect of the music? Was that like something that you guys kind of just went into, or it was just something that somebody came in, jammed with the boys, and you guys, man, this really works?
Horns is always something I wanted, but I didn't and probably still don't know how to use them to their full effect, which is why like I rely heavily on like the rest of the band, because 8 out of the 10 people are jazz trained, and Anatol's like a
orchestrator.
Like you're doing your masters right now.
Masters in composition.
Yeah, so I can pretty much just be like, here's what I'm thinking, and here's kind of what I want, and they'll come back with something way better than I thought it would ever be. But yeah, horns is something I wanted, but it just started with our first trumpet player. Played in another band that we did a gig with, and he was like, man, I would love to like come and jam with you guys, like no pressure, and then just kind of started building. Like once you add those couple horns to what we were doing, it was like, oh yeah. I remember with my I took home some demos at the beginning of the band, and there was like demos without horns, and then we had demos with horns, and my partner was like, she heard the horn stuff, she's like, oh, now I get it, like now I get what you were talking about, because before as a 4-piece it wasn't there yet, and then once we started
I find
gelling,
that our writing is really, despite being improvisational, it's really hook oriented too, so having a melody that's like amplified by 5 horns,
like counter melodies
and counter melodies and stuff, like the instrumentation allows us to do a lot of stuff, and as a drummer it's super fun, especially when we're playing as a 10-piece, because I like driving a band of 9 other people is super fun, and it's very exhausting too.
Trying to keep it all orientated in time.
Oh yeah.
And it's so many fun colors to work with, and like so many different types of effects, and I think like our music is progressing sort of in a different direction than the first album, but it's also broadening its scope quite a bit. Which is something that having more horns has definitely allowed us to do.
And like everyone has kind of, we have a lot of similarities in what we listen to, but there's also a lot of like uniqueness in like everyone's musical tastes. A lot of people are like, oh, you're very unique, and it's like, sometimes it's a good and a bad thing, like some people are like, we don't know where to put you, like we like this, but what do we do with it? And we're like, well, does it sound good? Are people sweating and moving? Are you selling tickets? Yeah, well then, what's the problem here? I don't know.
Yeah, we kind of are straddling a kind of a fence between elements of jazz, rock, and funk. So, like, and because we're instrumental, it kind of puts us in a bit of a niche, though. But I think that what's great about bands we've opened for in a similar kind of domain, like 5 Alarm Funk, is that instrumental, high-energy music is really great at festivals, and I find, like, especially as a drummer, or I feel like we all feel this way, having the chance to be in a band that has improvisation as an element of it is extremely rewarding, because we just work on feeding off of each other in our live show, and we kind of have developed, I would say, a common language among us in terms of the way that we communicate now. Yeah, like it's really starting to gel. It's really, really fun.
Okay. So from the first album, Each Day a Different Sun, into the second album, Dawn Offerings, how has the group evolved sonically and in the writing process?
Well, Each Day was 80% me writing it, and it was very guitar oriented. Yeah. Which it still is, kind of. But guitar melodies I write on the guitar will then be sometimes transferred over to 3 or 4 part horns and stacked and whatnot. And then it's nice for me because like I'm not the most like competent musician, so it allows me to like stand back and like chill and I can focus on what I do best. Like I'm definitely not the leader musically, which is super nice, because it allows me to like do everything else. But moving forward with Dawn Offerings, it was more collaborative. Like like Anatol had way more writing on that, and Aaron, our saxophone player, had a lot more credit, and it became more building songs out of jams for the most part, and then us bringing it home and then like arranging and figuring out how that's gonna go. And there's way more flavors, more dynamic, more depth, more maturity, I guess.
And I think like it's really starting to showcase our diversity of influences in the band now that there are like so many people in it. You're gonna have so many influences. Like I think the first one is like fairly squarely like prog jazz rock.
For sure. Now we're getting like hip hop beats and electronic tendencies at times, like more synths, more like we're talking about like programming certain triggers and whatnot, and like a lot. It's really exciting. Like I love it.
So it just continues to evolve and is getting more complicated, and
not even more complicated. No, like, we're fine tuning. Like we want to be
concise.
Like I think the new tunes that we're working on, like we're always very conscious about, do we need this section, and like what does this really add? So even though like from one song to the next it's very different, each song is a very coherent state.
Yeah.
That's like the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how to make it. So I always say how to make it so like the common average passing by listener will get it and appreciate it, but even the most like connoisseur of music can appreciate it as well. Like there are some technical aspects to it, but the main goal is always to have it be to connect with as many people as we can.
So you guys have kind of figured out a formula how to include your influences, but to focus them in a specific narrative so that it doesn't get too out of hand.
I wouldn't say it's a formula. Like it's definitely.
Yeah, I wouldn't say we've learned anything.
It's a long, slow, brutal process of bashing ideas. And, hurt feelings sometimes. Sorry.
Whatever.
But yeah,
my ego's immune. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm immune.
But it's really fun, like getting to jam on all these like very sort of atomic ideas, and then expanding them outwards, and then trimming them back down into something that gets right to the point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there are some loosey-goosey moments for sure, which is always very fun too. Some nice jam moments, but also some like straight to the point moments.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
very, very much so. You guys do blend a lot of funk and jazz, and that's like something that like I showed my partner the music the other day, and she's like, well, this is very funky, or like very jazzy, and I was like, well, wow, it's kind of funky too, because like the guitar was funky, and it's like, no, but the drums are jazz. Like, listen to the guitar, babe.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, so you guys actually mentioned that you guys picked up a award at Breakout West last year for Western Canadian Music Award, Instrumental Artist of the Year.
Yeah.
So what has that meant to you in the group? Like you mentioned that it has opened up a few doors for you, but I mean, what does that actually mean? Because you went down there, you actually spoke on the panel. What was the weekend for you? Tell me about it.
It was, well, personally, it was, oh man. When you've like been working on something for so long that you really care about, and with that comes a lot of self-doubt and stress and exhaustion, but also like a lot of love and joy and care. It was like an amalgamation of all of that, because like you never know if what you're doing is, for me, I'm always self-doubting. It's like, is this good? Is this any good? Like, or when the more successful we've gotten, I'm like, are people just like messing with me? Is this just one big long con? But when we won it, it was a nice moment of like, oh god, that felt so good. Like getting validated by your peers a little bit, you know, and you're like, oh, this is nice, like it was like a moment of acceptance, but also I had a few people in the industry that were like really like, you earned this, you and the band have worked so hard, and you've been pushing and making good music, and it was nice to like, and then to chum it up with people, and not pay for a drink the entire weekend was awesome. And what was it? I had to talk on the panel Friday morning about like strategic touring in Western Canada, and we got the award on Thursday night. So of course I went out, and I walk into the conference, and one of the organizers' partners is there, and she's like, oh, Eddie, you look like shit. I'm like, I know. Everyone's going to know I'm a screw up. Oh, God. I just, like, chugged a bunch of coffee and, like, bullshitted my way through, like, 2 hours of, like, so, Western Canada, what can I tell you? Lots of oatmeal, and, boy, BC loves you.
I definitely get the "are they messing with me" thing, though. Like, when we got nominated again this year, like I could not believe it. Like having I sound so egotistical now. I think I'm allowed a little bit of egotism every now and then. That was like so shocking, and to be up against like Five Alarm Funk, our kind of idols and parents almost.
Oh yeah,
and other great artists in the category. Like
it's like a stacked. Like last year there were solid people in that group, and then this year I'm like, oh man, like I was checking out everyone in our group. I was like, oh Oh, well, Teo from 5 Alarm Funk messaged me. He's like, "Oh, it's on now, buddy." And I was like, "Well, if I have to give the award to anyone, I'm really happy it'll be you." Not that I'm saying 5 Alarm Funk will win, but I feel like they're heavyweights in Western Canada.
Yeah.
And even across Canada, and now in the U.S., they've started to break down there. And like we've opened up for them a couple of times, and we've made a really nice relationship with them. So yeah, it's been great. How did you feel, Glenn, about the award?
Pretty dope. I've been in a bunch of bands. This is the first one that went really well. And I feel like the award itself is just like a really nice thing to on top of that. I don't know. I'm just very grateful to be where I am. And getting recognized by a group of our peers is really amazing. I wish I had been at the conference. That would have been sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. It's hard to... I feel like I haven't even really processed it yet. I don't know. I don't know. Sorry.
We're coming on to the second one, and I'm still processing the first one. Ask me in 3 years, and maybe the second one will hit.
See, that's what egotism sounds like. That's what egotism sounds like. That was a long con bit, and here we are back in the present.
Didn't mean to make him sound like an ass, but sorry. Alright, you guys, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, but don't fret, there's still a lot more of Ed, Glenn, and Anatol of the Apollo Sons on the other side of this break. Of course, we got to go ahead and spin you another track off of the Apollo Sons 2019 EP, Dawn Offerings, and we're going to be doing that for you here right away. But of course, before we take that moment, I want to take a quick moment to shout out ilovedtp.com, because that is where that's right, you beautiful person, you listening to this show right here, right now, that is where you are going to go ahead and find yourself the finest in Desert Tiger merchandise. I mean, really, it's the only place that you're going to find that merchandise as well, but nonetheless, because this is the best way for you to support the show besides those free options, which of course, again, are subscribing, sharing, and rating and reviewing. But like I said, this is the best way for you to support the show, because when you go ahead and pick up a t-shirt off of ilovedtp.com, that money goes directly into things like my gas tank, in order for me to drive to places to interview great bands like the Apollo freaking Sons. That's right, if you have bought a shirt, you have contributed to great episodes such as this one. So please, while you're enjoying this episode, go ahead, pat yourself on the back, and if you're wearing your Desert Tiger podcast t-shirt while you're patting yourself on the back, I must say, you look mighty freaking fine while doing so. So if you guys want to go ahead and support the show, you can go and do so at ilovedtp.com. That is ilovedtp.com. Alright, it's about that time that we fired up the jukebox once again. So let me just walk on over here, bang on it a couple times. Oh, it's spinning. Here we go. The 2019 EP, Dawn Offerings. This track is entitled A Song for Sterling.
the Desert Tiger Podcast.
Okay, so for being an instrumental-based rock group, especially in Western Canada, for getting onto the road at first, how difficult is it to book shows and venues? Because, like you said, for festivals, like, it's a very easy sound for those sorts of crowds to catch on to and move along to. But, like, when to try and convince concert promoters when you guys are first getting onto the scene to promote a instrumental band when lyricism is a huge thing to a lot of people. How difficult was that?
Well, it's not like our first tour we were playing great rooms or anything. And like I said before, anyone can book a tour. Yeah, there's a dive in every city that doesn't have a sound system or expects to not pay the band and gets upset when you ask people to pay $5 at the door and then yells at you about expecting to be paid. But anyway, I think part of it was being upfront, insanely professional. Like, even in the emails, I was like very straight to the point of like, this is how we'll promote the show. These are the opening bands we have. We'll work as hard as we can to make the night a success. And then most promoters are willing to give you a shot, you know? Yeah, festivals were not easy for us to get into. The first 2 years, when people ask about how we got this far, I say, and I'm serious, spite is a very powerful tool at times. You know, like, every time we would get a rejection, I would be like, you know, not fully, but be like, you know, I'm going to show them, we're going to do this. I'm going to give them no choice but to book us because we're going to get to that point where they don't have a choice. Having said that, like, you know, it's not to sound like arrogant or anything like that, but, you know, if you keep on hitting and working hard and, like, refining, I feel like there'll come a time where that hard work just has to pay off, as long as what you're making is honest and decent to a large amount of people, or at least a good amount of people. If that makes sense.
Yeah. I would say this is the first band though that I would travel with that I feel like we actually are building a fan base, especially in Western Canada.
Yeah.
And that there are repeat people. Like, we had a mega fan in Prince George named Justin who had seen us previously
in Lethbridge. Yeah.
And it's interesting, like, meeting people again, because we've been back and forth a couple of times now coastally.
Yeah, like Saskatoon, there was tons of people that came just to see us and bringing their friends now. So we've gone to that point where it's like, now our fans are bringing their friends, who are then in turn bringing their friends. So it went from being 10 people at a show to 30 people at a show to now 60 people at a show in our good markets. And Saskatoon was 130 people, which is like, so it's getting to that point now where it's like 3 degrees now, and then you're building out to like that 4th friends circle, and then the 5th, and then all of a sudden it's like snowballing. Like, so, but yeah, in the beginning, it was definitely hard at times, and there was like more empty rooms than not, but on every tour there was at least 3 good shows that like kept morale going, and we were having fun. But now it's like kind of switched over, where I think we've only had like a couple bummer shows, and then it's like, but even the bummer shows have some positives to them now. So,
like we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Dawn offering this morning. Today, you guys actually see that it's on the Exclaim Earshot number 9.
Yeah, that's
My
cool.
goodness. So it's getting lots of radio play on various community radio stations and otherwise across Canada. So to actually see something that you've put out on the charts, I mean, like we said earlier, for an instrumental group, like when some of the other groups on there are long-time proven Canadian acts, to be on charts with them, what does that look like?
It feels great. It's nice to see college and community radio stations playing a 3-song album and it charting so high. It's like, wow, man, those songs are getting some nice plays. We also learned that we're getting some plays on CBC and Prince George and Kelowna. and which is great because I never thought we would be a CBC band whatsoever. So yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it was nice to see like us at number 9 and then like Royal Canoe like at number 14. Because like, I love Royal Canoe and it's like nice.
They're like untouchable in Winnipeg.
Yeah, they are untouchable.
Completely untouchable.
Absolutely, yeah. In Winnipeg, yeah, to like kind of going up and down on the charts with them is like really cool. Yeah, and I always want to like say thank you to college radio because those DJs are like your first champions to me. You know, like they're willing, they're true music appreciators. You know, they're volunteer. No one's paying them, and obviously being volunteer, but you know, like
it's both.
Yes. But you know they're pushing the up and coming bands. They're telling their friends. They're playing it on air. They're talking about the shows locally. Cannot overstate the importance when you're first starting of college campus radio stations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to do lives. I think we all share an affinity for the live sessions on radio.
Yeah, it's so much fun.
Yeah, it's great. We've actually gotten like kind of like to like kind of like prove a point. For instance, in Calgary, there's CJSW, and we had a show last summer that a festival promoter couldn't come to, but I sent him like, oh hey, by the way, we're doing this live session the next day on the radio station. Maybe you can tune in at like 10 in the morning. And then he messaged me being like, oh yeah, I totally heard it. You guys sounded great. And then he actually like booked us for the festival, which is based on like a radio performance. So, you know, you never know. You kind of want to put yourself out as many ways as you can. And if it's 5 more people are going to be fans of yours because they hear you on the local radio station, then yeah, if you have time to stop there on tour, you should really do it. And you never know where those DJs are going to end up. You know, like they're voting on the Polaris. They're maybe going on to work at record labels in 5 years, or they're going on to be booking agents. Like Canada is such a small scene for a large country that, you know, you never know where anyone is going to end up in a year to 5 years to 10 years. So, yeah, I guess just make friends with everyone.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. It's one person could be just being a roadie for a radio station, and next thing you know, they get picked up by CBC, and suddenly they're on air talent, and they're getting picked up, and they're building steam, and suddenly the bands that they've been paying attention to this whole time with them.
Are now on their playlist, in heavy rotation. Absolutely. That's exactly it. You know, so college, fantastic.
Okay, so when you go into a live studio like that, especially for a larger band with a very big sound to them, do you guys strip down the sound at all when you're doing a live in-studio thing like that? Or how do you guys manage to capture the sound of the band well inside of a community radio station studio?
Well, I think very fortunately, most college radio stations that we've done live sessions for have very competent sound techs working there. Mm-hmm. So, we often get a much better sound check at a live session than we would at a venue. So really, we don't have to hold back. We can just play as free as we want, and it's like almost like an ideal situation. Like in Calgary, like we each had our own headphone monitor mixes, which we don't even get in the recording studio. Which is so nice.
I think it also comes from like having toured so much and been a band very heavily active that we like learn like how to
play the room.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. You know, like we've had rooms that are very small, very big, no sound system, no sound tech, where we have to figure it out. So when we go into any sort of room, it takes time, of course, but you learn how to run a sound check. You learn how to shut up when you don't need to play, and like make sure everyone's checking their own stuff. And so that's kind of how we've learned how to, in a 10-piece, in a small studio, college studio, like we can still pull it off and have it be good. It might not sound exactly like the recording, thank you, and it might be a little different, but I think it's always going to be good. It's not always the same, and that goes the same with like our live shows as well.
Yeah.
I have people who have been to 20 of our live shows locally, and every time they're like, that was the best show you guys have ever done. It was so different because it's like just from the nature, and I think that's what gives us a leg up on certain bands that have just like a color by numbers set list type thing, and
we also incorporated visuals into our
and
setup.
like we have a custom light show now.
Yeah, like we have some animations. Is it by Zephrisson or Ben or Zeph? Yeah, Zephrisson is a great animator and video guy in Winnipeg, and he created like a psychedelic pattern that kind of morphs into itself.
Like an all-seeing eyeball, like animated eyeball that looks out into the audience and shit.
Yeah, with projected onto large screens.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's cool at a local show.
Yeah. Sounds like it would be very intense. Plays into the music probably.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. I asked that question before definitely because just to say like the cookie cutter type set list thing where a band, like a lot of bands, and not to rag on them though, will go into a studio and we'll just play an acoustic set, and they just play their regular song bare bones without even like considering that it's going to sound empty.
Yeah, it's
I guess it depends on the format of your music. Like if you are someone who functions well as a folk songwriter, solo's fine. Like but I don't know. I feel like our band is predicated on the instrumentation to provide the full effect. So, like I think that you could get away with just like doing an acoustic thing, but for this band it would not work.
No, it's just like sometimes you'll have like a heavier band who will try and do like an acoustic thing with just like the bare bones of the guitar, and it'll just be like, this doesn't work, guys.
It can work even for more like upbeat music, like some Hiatus Coyote acoustic sessions, I think, or I don't know if they're fully acoustic, but like they're way more stripped down, and you know, like as long as the songwriting is tight, you know, like it can often really still sound good when it's stripped down.
And we had that as well. Like last summer, we had to do a few shows out east as a 4-piece. And I think those shows were still really good. Like, you're arranging and songwriting to show if it's good or not. You should be able to play, the melodies should stand up with just like on a solo acoustic guitar with the bass line and the melody. You know you have something good if you can have the bass line on the top string and then like just the melody or whatever. You know, it's kind of like the campfire effect. If you can play the song around a campfire with the acoustic guitar and it still sounds good, then it's a good song. Or a part of it, always kind of, if you can strip it down to a 3-piece for us and it's still good, then it's like, oh, sweet. Then I guess it's going to be a song then.
All right, like we mentioned earlier, you are on a panel for touring Western Canada. You have a larger outfit that sometimes maybe getting inside of a vehicle and getting organized can be a little bit tight, a little bit difficult. So what are some hints, what are some tactics that you have learned to employ over the years to make things work as smoothly as possible? Because let's face it, things don't ever run as smooth as you want them to.
As smooth as I want them to, yes. I think being respectful of each other's space is really good, and everyone is out of their comfort zone for the most part. If you're a fan of the home routine, it can be hard, even when you really enjoy touring. For instance, like I have like a partner and like a 1.5-year-old son at home, so it's like it can be a little tricky and like emotional at times, but I think the band is really good at like respecting each other's spaces for the most part, and just like you don't always have to like chum it up with everyone all the time. Sometimes you just want to shut up and be quiet.
It's a really mutually supportive environment and an honest one, like that. If there's ever a small little issue of politeness or that kind of thing, we're very good at talking through things and just occupying space with each other and having a good time most of the time.
Coming from like a personal or like a band leader and speaking to the band leaders specifically, I would say don't ever hold the rest of your band. And if, like, I am an avid believer in, like, constantly working and hustling, and I stay up to 1 a.m. doing emails and research and planning. I had to learn to not expect that of everyone else in the band, because you will be disappointed for the most part. Like, having said that, the rest of the guys pull their weight even more so than I even asked them to at times, which is amazing. But I hold myself like to 100% on the ball at the whole time. And as a band leader, you cannot hold the rest of your band to your personal standards of how you set for yourself. Like, you still set standards, of course, and mine are high, but just for the band leaders, like, don't like expect everyone ever to care as much as you do about it. Mm-hmm. But I've gotten super lucky in that I feel like through the hard work that I've done, it's easy to get people to buy into the band, to be like, hey, there's a future here. You want to be a professional musician? Well, we've got a pretty good shot at it. So with some work and like some care.
It's very motivating to like see how much work Ed puts in, and like watching the dividends of that hard work pay out now. And like, it just makes it a lot easier to want to pitch in. And
I also feel like we're learning a lot about the industry from you, Ed.
Yeah.
Like, we get to watch you operate, which is actually a super privileged position for us to have. We just get to see that it is actually quite a lot of work to make all of this stuff happen.
Yeah. And that you're very good at it.
Yeah, which is like a way for me to also add added value to being in my band. It's like, well, I can pay you not the greatest, but I can also I can feed you a little bit. You don't have to worry about accommodations, and I will help you with your projects as much as I can, as long as it doesn't fully go against my own self-interest. Yeah.
Why would you expect more than that of us?
But it's yeah, I guess that's like how to survive on the road, and in a band as well, you know.
All right, so on that point, saying that you guys have had a first-hand like experience being able to see someone else's like vision and how they pull it off, what are some of the things that you have learned from watching Ed, from the planning aspects to the music writing aspects to bringing it all together? What are some things that you have learned, and what are some things that you have already applied to your own craft?
Okay, I would say that, like, I've been in a lot of bands and worked with different band leaders before, but Ed is first of which that I've been fortunate enough to be in the band of. And
oh my god!
And he's the first one who's very business oriented, and I feel like it's the business oriented side of things that I'm learning from the most. Just in terms of, as we've mentioned, like the level of time he spends staying up till 1 a.m, emailing people all the time. I think that for my own kind of music that I plan to make with my life, I can take those kind of perspectives on the workload. I can take those in and understand what that'll be moving forward in my own life. Mm-hmm. Not to put this in a past tense kind of way, but it's just those things are very valuable.
Yeah, you're not leaving the band.
I'm not leaving the band
forever.
Yeah, I think like it's been interesting to see, like, it is a lot of work and more than you'd ever think.
I think what's interesting about our experience is that we come from a music school experience, and we didn't really have much of a music industry kind of crash course of what the world is actually like outside of that kind of bubble, because I feel like the music school world is kind of bubble in that way. And it just,
it's like, like work on your technique, go to New York, prove yourself that way.
Specific narratives.
That's exactly what you have to do. But it's really been interesting to see how, you might temporarily think you're in a setback or you're in a bit of a lull, but things, with the hard work, you push through it and it just goes to places where you never imagined.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Just really encouraging.
Definitely encouraging. You're a life-affirming kind of person, Ed DeRoche.
You can make a career out of Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Hey,
go figure.
Who knew that? And all the time I heard in Saskatchewan, that was impossible. Okay, so you guys are currently on the road in support of Dawn Offerings, but once this specific tour wraps up, once you finish it off, what are the plans for the rest of 2018 here before you... 2019. Wow, me living in the past. 2019 before, of course, you go up and defend your Western Canadian Music Award.
Well, we're home for a month, and we're doing Winnipeg Pride Festival and the Winnipeg International Jazz Festival, which is a dream come true for me, as I've never played that festival and I've always wanted to. We're on Saturday night at like the big open free stage, like outside, like right downtown Winnipeg. So that'll be
which is like old, like colonial warehouse, old nice buildings.
Oh yeah,
it's just like a very beautiful area to do an outdoor show. I'm really looking forward to it.
And then going on the road, heading to the East Coast for 2.5 weeks.
Yeah. A couple festivals.
End of June, early July, and then we're home for 2.5 weeks, and then coming back out west.
Yeah, and in that time we're home, we have like 2 festivals at home in that as well. And then we're out west again for 2 weeks in July and August to do the Element Festival in Princeton, live in West Kelowna. Got a big show in Calgary at the Palomino with I Am the Mountain, which is great. It's really interesting because like now our tours have festivals built into them, and and then we have Breakout West, and then we're getting ready. We're getting the new album ready. So Dawn Offerings was kind of a teaser or a taste to what's going to be coming up next year. In early fall, we're aiming to release a full length. We have about 7 songs of that already recorded, and we're working on 4 to 5 new ones. We just wanted to get something out, and I didn't want to release all of it all at once this year, and especially with going into the U.S. with our we just signed with a U.S. booking agent out of California, so we're going to be building in the U.S. And and we just signed with a Canadian agent, so hopefully our bigger shows in Canada, we might have a couple surprise announcements, but I'm not allowed to say anything yet to anyone. But we're working on a potentially a mind-blowingly cool show that I really hope happens, but more on that, I guess, in the future.
Definitely. More in the future for sure. So are you guys currently recording that full length here inside this home studio above us?
No, we're doing pre-production.
Yeah, so we're taking the ideas we've been formulating as a group. There's a core writing component of the group. There's 4 of us.
Yeah, 4 or 5.
4 or 5, and we get together and do writing sessions. And now that we have access to a home studio, we are just experimenting with those ideas and fleshing them out a little bit more, so that when we go into the studio next, we have more of an idea of what things could possibly be.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully an exact idea.
Yeah. Concise is the word.
Okay, so when you guys craft a song, you just have like, this is all like before you guys have horns, right? Or do you have like an idea of what you have?
Yeah, we bring in, so Aaron Bartel, who's actually sleeping upstairs, I think, he plays all sorts of saxophones, and he will usually take my melody that I write on guitar and kind of transfer it over to 3 or 4 horns, and then Anthony, who plays trombone, has been doing a lot of work on these new songs with like pads and harmonies and like adding a lot of textures on there. So it's gotten a lot more collaborative in the way. So, but it usually starts as a core, and one of us will bring in like a riff or a chord progression. Usually we ask for 3 things, like 3 ideas for the song. Yeah. And then usually one won't make the cut, but we'll grow off of those 2 or 3. And then they turn out generally way better than I thought they were going to be. Yeah, Wednesday and Crybaby are like that. These are working titles for the new songs. But yeah, Crybaby for sure.
I'm really excited about that song. I'm going to chops out on that mouth.
Yeah, that one's great. Wednesday is just this journey for me. I'm like, this is fucking cool.
Yeah, I love this.
I can feel the energy. I can feel the excitement. That's good. That's good. All right, are you guys doing this full length all in one studio, or are you guys doing it in a few different places?
So I guess we've been recording with Lloyd Peterson at Paintbox Studios in Winnipeg, and I think the plan is to continue there. Lloyd's been Great set of years.
Lloyd and his daughter Madeline are up for Producer of the Year at the Western Canadian Music Awards in Whitehorse for Maddie's album. Yeah. And they're great. The Rogers have been friends of mine. That's Lloyd Peterson, and then his two kids, Maddie and Lucas, have been great friends of mine for the last
they're kind of staples of the folk scene in Winnipeg and abroad.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, for joining us here. From the book music smarts on this side of the table with Glenn and Anatol to the street music smarts. All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
And with that brings us to the close of another episode here at the Desert Tiger Podcast. So, of course, I want to go ahead and take a moment to thank Glenn and Anatol of the Apollo Sons for joining us on this episode. And, of course, I want to go ahead and thank Ed DeRoche, band leader of the Apollo Sons, for also joining me, but for also reaching out to me to inform me that the group was going to be doing a Western Canadian run. And of course, we ended up planning this episode right here. That's how these things work. Get out there, network, make your dreams come true. You never know what happens when you reach out sometimes. Of course, if you are a group who possibly is interested in being on Desert Tiger, go ahead, message me at desert.tiger.podcast@gmail.com. I can't always guarantee that everybody is going to get a spot right now. We are still sticking to one episode a week, and things are getting booked up pretty quickly at this rate. So sometimes I can't promise you anything, but you never know, so you might as well take that shot. Just like Ed did when he emailed me, just like the Apollo Sons do every time they hit the road, every time they step into the studio, and every time they step on stage, they are taking that shot to do the most with everything that they have. So reach for the stars, because even if you miss, you're gonna end up in space, and space is pretty goddamn cool, man. So from one dream chaser to another, thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Desert Tiger Podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard here on today's episode, maybe you want to consider sharing the episode on your social media, or, maybe telling your friends about it in person if you still do that sort of thing. Maybe while you're telling your friends or family about it in person, you can do so while wearing a Desert Tiger t-shirt, which you can go ahead and grab from ilovedtp.com. Of course, that is ilovedtp.com, because that is the website, that is the best place for you to go to support the show, to wear and rep it every single place that you go. And of course, to those of you who do go ahead and pick up a t-shirt, you're going to get yourself a nice handwritten note from yours truly. If you want me to go ahead and give you a phone call, just leave your phone number in the details of the order, and I will go ahead and give you a call as soon as I possibly can. Of course, there are no guarantees that I'm going to get it done on the same day or even the day right after, but I am definitely going to make sure that I get that phone call to you, that handwritten note to you, those extra little goodies in the bag like the stickers and everything else. Those are going to be coming your way too when you order from ilovedtp.com. All right, you guys, have yourselves a gorgeous weekend. Summer is on its freaking way. Go out there and celebrate. Yeah. All right, have a good weekend.